What is going on, Wolfpack? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves here with a record guest now, up to 10 times. The reason we keep having him back, because it's always one of my favorite shows of the year, maybe the favorite show of the year, is Mr. Pro Football Focus's Ian Hartitz at iHartitz on Twitter, their lead analyst over there. He hosts the PFF Fantasy Football Pod and is among, again, as I said, my favorite people to talk ball with. Hartitz, thank you so much for coming back on, man. How's it going?
Good to be back, man. Appreciate you having me. Didn't realize we had double digits. Let's freaking go. But yeah, no, we've, been talking for years now, and really no one else in the industry I'd rather, have a midday beer with in the middle of June and talk a little bit of ball. So cheers, brother. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, we got a good agenda here on tap.
Absolutely. We're basing the agenda off one of your favorite series. You've done it wherever you've been writing, and you've got quite the resume there, spots you've hit. It's that 100 fantasy questions in 100 days. I always love this one. You hit 3 questions per team plus a bonus few, which I love the creative ones you got on that list coming up later for the season here. But we can't really hit all 100 as much as I'd love to just sit here and talk ball with you for like the next month straight and go over all 100. I've taken 10 of my favorites, stuff that we haven't really discussed on the podcast, on the show, to kind of give our listeners some new info, new takes. And I just can't wait to dive into all of them. You ready to go, my man?
Let's get it, man.
Awesome. This one's one of the most important, one of my favorites. And it's going to have a quick follow-up to this one. But what should we expect from Michael Thomas in the post-Brees era? What are you thinking, Hartitz?
Spent so much time yelling about Michael Thomas today already, man, because that damn Roto World clickbait headline, Guy in the Athletic wrote a good article about how Michael Thomas how Jameis Winston does throw into each individual route, and he had a drop off in slants from 2018 to 2019. Michael Thomas never said he's concerned about Winston's accuracy. Oh my gosh, but man, he's going to be just fine. Like the amount of slander this guy gets, I understand if you don't want to say he's better than Julio. He's not. He's not a top 5 real life receiver. He's still a freaking, I think you'd be hard pressed to name 10 better guys than him, and especially in fantasy land, because all that volume that led him to freaking wide receiver 1 honors and the most receptions in NFL history 2 years ago, that's all still there. And now he actually has a quarterback, hopefully, fingers crossed, Jameis wins the job, which we'll talk about in a second, but hopefully for the first time in 3 years, he'll have a quarterback that can throw the ball more than 30 yards downfield. I know Drew Brees was, even when he was quote unquote washed, his arm strength, still top of the league and, completion rate, yards per attempt. Like, it was kind of nice having someone like Michael Thomas that can make the most out of all these slants and crossers. The idea that Michael Thomas is the one holding back this passing game or his route tree is absurd. He has made Teddy Bridgewater and even Taysom freaking Hill look good for extended stretches, man. He got shut out against Carlton Davis in the playoffs. Like, that was unfortunate. Look at that passing game in that game. Alvin Kamara had 20 receiving yards. Are we writing him off because of one bad game? So look, he played through pain all season long. Wasn't a good move to punch Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the face. He's pretty annoying on Twitter, objectively. He has been off lately, but, when he's just randomly going at Devontae Parker over some Bleacher Report thing, like, I get it. He's not the easiest guy to be a big fan of, but people, just in terms of projected targets in fantasy football, you got to sign up for him. He's my wide receiver 6, very much undervalued by the industry right now.
Yeah, falling to round 3. I don't get it. 32.5% target share just a year ago, as you mentioned, 186 total for the career, NFL record 149. Just insane volume, led every single targets, receptions, receiving yards, all of it. I mean, the guy is a monster. So I am with you. I'm discounting that bad year, regardless of who the QB is. I mean, he had his 2 best games of the year last year with Taysom Hill. So if that's his worst case, he had over 19 in 2 games with Taysom Hill. Like, that's the worst case. I'll take it all day. So I'm back in there. End of round 2. It's a steal to me to get that guy. So I absolutely love it. And Wolfpack, if you don't mind giving this a like, a thumbs up, regardless of where you're at, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, any shares, likes, comments, always so appreciated to help us continue to grow. It's the easiest, freest way to just help us keep doing what we're doing. So thank you guys so much. Well, speaking of Michael Thomas's quarterback situation, who should we root for between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill? It seems like an obvious answer, but I wonder what your take is on this one.
It's Jameis. Like, good for Michael Thomas on making the most out of 4 Taysom Hill starts, but not like this tells you all you need to know about this situation. When people are like, wow, like we really want Taysom Hill to win this quarterback competition for Michael Thomas. Like, shut up. Listen to yourself. Like, come on, man. Taysom Hill, like, okay. he is probably a little bit better than a lot of people, including myself, like to give him credit for as a thrower of the football. But my goodness, dude, I still just think of that duck he threw. I think it was against the Falcons, like triple crow hop. Emmanuel Sanders just had to come sprinting back. It looked like it hit like the ceiling or something. And no, it's, oh my God. Like, we can all accept that Taysom, that Teddy are objectively below average quarterbacks, and it just didn't matter for Michael Thomas. Jameis Winston just threw for 5,000 yards 2 years ago, man. Like, you can take your slant accuracy stats and, go to hell with them, because I just don't think it matters. When we have Michael Thomas going downfield and he's been given a catchable ball, he has actually posted the 4th highest rate on those passes, 20 yards downfield since entering the league. He just only has 36 opportunities because Drew Brees hasn't made a habit of that. Jameis has. So it's weird to say like we could be looking at an untapped ceiling from a guy that has already broke the freaking single season reception record. That might actually be the case here with Michael Thomas.
I 100% agree. I mean, he just sustained Jameis Winston, as you mentioned, 5,000 yards, led the NFL in attempts and yards, I think passing touchdowns too, quarterback 4 that year in fantasy, but also sustained Chris Godwin, the number 2 receiver, and Mike Evans, also top 10 in points per game. So when you have no one else to throw to outside, I mean, Traquan Smith, like, come on. Yeah. All of that passing volume could be going to Michael Thomas, would be insane. So I'm fully with you. Let's go, Jameis. Let's go.
Yeah. And also, like, for Alvin Kamara, fantasy football managers out there, like, every time my running back ranks get tweeted out, I always have people bitching at me about why is Alvin Kamara a low-end RB1. It's because that's what he was last year when Taysom Hill was under center. And honestly, he kind of got bailed out by a pretty high touchdown rate in those games. They don't give him 200 carries. Like, they just don't. Latavius Murray is there. They're going to continue to feature him. If he's not catching 80 passes, he'll still be solid, but he's not going to be the game-breaking RB1 that we've seen over the past few seasons. So Jameis, like, even if he's under center, we have some concern because he's been such a high average target depth quarterback throughout his career. I'm not convinced he's going to be dinking and dunking as much, but Taysom Hill, man, he just like, sucks in all the energy from everybody around him, all the fantasy points from all the players whenever they put him under center. It'd be great for Taysom if he's under center. Yeah. That's it. Like, Adam Troutman would sink. All these guys would sink if Taysom Hill was under center, but Taysom Hill would then be the prime late round quarterback. So I don't know, man. Maybe we should start drafting Taysom Hill. Maybe that's the moral of the story, because it's sounding more and more like he has a real chance to win this job.
Which is insane. And yeah, this is definitely among the most insane and most important quarterback battles and just intriguing storylines for the rest of the preseason to make sure you watch for all the reasons listed by Ian there, because of how the offensive shifts, but also how valuable Taysom can be. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, was the QB2 at worst QB3 over the span of his starts. So he would have some insane value, as would, Jameis Winston could be an insane value. And both guys go outside your first 15, 16 rounds. So best ball wise, I love just going for both of them and seeing what happens. Worst case would be just a sickening like committee duo that just sucks each other's value out. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope we get Jameis. And if it's not, then draft all the Taysom Hill. I love it. Great question here. Is it officially J.K. Dobbins' RB1 season? That's such an intriguing class of sophomore backs. They're all so talented. He seems to be the one that not many people are talking about, though. What are your thoughts on this guy? Is he getting overlooked amongst those sophomores? Can he be an RB1?
I don't think so. I think he's going about the right spot. I have him as my RB 18. I think his ADP underdog last time I looked was as the RB 17. Like, he's just not going to get the volume, people. So much of what we do just comes down to volume. Like, Dobbins is so freaking good, man. He's one of, I think, 5 or 6 guys to average 6 yards per carry in a single season since 2010. It's him, CJ Spiller, Adrian Peterson, Alvin Kamara, and Jamal Charles. Like, great list to already be on. And like, he passes the, you can say, Ian, take your stats and go to hell. Like, put on the freaking film then, and you're going to see this dude slippery as all hell and with some jets when he gets the open lane. The problem is Lamar Jackson owns the top 3 single season records for a QB in rush attempts, and he's done it in each of his 3 damn seasons as a starter. We have Gus Edwards, who right now is only behind Nick Chubb in yards per carry since 2018. Cool. Nick Chubb is way better than Gus Edwards, but Gus is not going away. Like, he's still there. And, we got some questions later, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Baltimore Ravens even add someone else to almost like kind of take over for Mark Ingram. I wouldn't be shocked if Justice Hill kind of takes over for Mark Ingram. It doesn't look, Dobbins is going to lead the team in touches, but there's a difference between leading the team with 300 touches or 200 touches, which I think he should be projected far closer to. So Lamar, even if he takes a step forward as a passer, like I don't think it's going to be passing to the running backs. It's just a bad situation, man. It's almost kind of like what we were just talking about with Taysom Hill. Like when we have a quarterback with this many rush attempts, it's just hard for anybody else in the offense to truly eat unless we're getting a bunch of touchdowns. So maybe that works with Dobbins. That's the path. We saw with Mark Ingram when he scored like 15 times, but the problem was, that was pretty fluky if we look back on it. He had like 5 receiving scores on like 25 catches or something absurd. So, hey, I'm, bullish on the Ravens getting a lot better with, Bateman, with Wallace. Ronnie Stanley's going to play more than 6 games. Like Lamar Jackson, for as much as people want to hate on this guy, what's a quarterback's job? Put up points. The Ravens have scored more points over the past 2 regular seasons than any other team. Unfortunately, I'm just not positive it's going to be all that fantasy friendly of a situation for his running backs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. They've only targeted the running back 62 times in back-to-back seasons, second fewest in both of those years. And I don't see that improving with Rashad Bateman there, even if the offense does take a step forward. Maybe that does increase his touchdown chances. Sure, that would be nice. But ultimately, I'm with you there. I'm not buying him. He's probably the lowest of the sophomore backs. Well, maybe DeAndre Swift these days with all this madness going on. Todd Gurley lands there. The one thing I did notice with Dobbins, though, if you look at his games with 10 or more carries, and I don't think that's an ambitious mark to set for him. There's only 8 games last year. He averaged over 15 fantasy points per game as compared to 6 in the games where he saw under those carries. So when he gets the steady volume, he does perform and he can just thrive in this run scheme. They did make him a luxury pick last year. So maybe, just maybe, they hand those keys over and just ride the guy. He would be a league winner if that happens. Fingers crossed, and you'd be getting a sick value there. I don't see it. I'm with you. I don't see that happening, but there is a bit of a ceiling. So if he's there like late round 3 and Michael Thomas is already gone, then yeah, maybe I can go in on J.K. Dobbins for sure. What about this guy, Mr. Odell Beckham? Are you buying the Odell Beckham comeback season?
Yeah, because we don't have to buy the usual version of Beckham, which is like a top 10 receiver. Right now, he's going as a wide receiver 29, which I don't even think is like that egregious of an ADP. Like, I understand it, but I think he's a great target right there in that range. Look, 2019, as bad as that was, he was a wide receiver 25. Last year in weeks 1 through 6 before he got hurt, he was a wide receiver 19. Like, we can buy Beckham at his floor instead of his ceiling for the first time in his career pretty much, or at least since his rookie season. And look, people, he hasn't been great on the Browns. I understand that. I've watched the games, but the bigger issue has just been volume. With the Giants, 2014 to 2018, always averaged over 10 targets per game in every single season. 2019, he was at 8.3. 2020, he was just at 7, even when you take away, the 2-snap game where he got hurt. So with Beckham, he's only averaged 0.5 fewer yards per target with the Browns than he did in his last 3 years with the Giants. We still haven't seen him play with the best version of Baker Mayfield yet. That guy was gone in 2019. He was gone for the first bit of 2020. Spare me the freaking argument that Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, or Kadarius Hodge are better as a freaking NFL wide receiver than OBJ. Just stop it. What it is Baker. Yeah, he's better when he throws the ball to the guy that the coverage and the play dictates it should go to. He shouldn't be trying to force feed Beckham the ball. And we were seeing that to start last season. Like, okay, they got railroaded by the Ravens and the Steelers. They scored over 30 points in every other game Beckham was in. There's this idea like this offense wasn't putting up like these big points with Beckham in there. And that just really wasn't the case. So, OBJ is someone that I think is a little bit unfairly dropping in these, just fantasy ADPs, at least that I'm seeing right now, and I'm fine to buy them because, again, man, anytime, like, we should always be trying to get players near their floor than their ceiling. And for Beckham, like, we could see an increase in volume, I think, year 2 in Stefanski's offense. He's a better fit there than Landry. We saw that. And Baker, again, if he keeps playing as well as he did last year, like, we're going to finally get that potential wide receiver 1 year that everyone, including myself, have been so hyped about ever since he got to Cleveland.
I know. He burned me so hard that first year he got there. It's been tough for me to recover. And he has only been a top 24 receiver 26% of the time, top 12 just 13% of the time since arriving in Cleveland. So I am a little bit nervous. But as you mentioned, when it's baked into that price, wide receiver 29, I'd have to look and see what type of running backs and receivers are going there. But I imagine the opportunity cost isn't too high at that point to get a talent like Odell Beckham, who, as quickly as I fizzled on him, he also won me like when that rookie year season, when he went crazy, I won 4 out of 5. Like I have a soft spot in my heart for him too. So maybe I need to warm back up to Odell Beckham rebounding, especially when you can buy him at his floor this year. I wonder, do you think they'll throw it more after ranking 28th in pass attempts, 31 per game last year? Do you see that changing at all when they still have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, probably the best duo in the NFL right now? Or do you think the quality just increases now?
I think we see them open it up a little bit more. I mean, Baker really towards the end of last year when he started to get hot, they were throwing the ball a little bit more. I don't have the specific ranks, but it really was weird, man, how we got those games. I'm looking at his game log now. We had the Raiders, the Texans, and the Eagles. There's 3 straight games in Cleveland that like every single one was that game you just circled Sunday morning, like way too much rain and wind. I'm not even going to worry about this.
Yeah.
So, we saw the shootouts, man. The defense is going to be a little bit better than last year. So it's a little bit of a leap of faith on my part. But again, when you can get the guy at his floor and you're kind of hoping for that to become the case, I'm a little more okay with it. But yeah, I'm higher on Baker than some people too going this year. So come on, guys, don't burn me like 2019 again. Come on.
I'm with you. I really think that way Baker finished, he could go a full year like that. And if he does, great news for Odell, great news for, Landry, another great value right now in drafts if you buy that narrative. So I'm with you there. I'm landing a lot of Baker, Landry, and maybe I got to start mixing some more Odell stacks in best ball right now.
This offense, Stefanski is the Vikings of the AFC. We've seen the Vikings enable plenty of fantasy relevant, high-end fantasy wide receivers, even with Dalvin Cook absolutely eating. I mean, when they can ideally build this offense as, the play action, deep shot juggernaut they want it to be, that's going to be like great fantasy friendly targets for Beckham. So even if he's not going to have the 150 plus, target workload we might got in New York, again, if we get that great version of Baker and a higher average target depth role, which he had for most of last year, that's when we hit.
I like it. I like the narrative a lot. What I don't like is the Texans. Good Lord. Could we talk about an uglier team right now? But what will they look like without Deshaun Watson? And are you going to care about anybody on this team should he be gone?
Not really, man. Brandon Cooks is the only guy, kind of, because he's always, just been pretty damn good, except for when he got the bad version of Jared Goff in 2019, I believe it was. Credit to Cooks. I know he's got the concussion injuries, but he's only missed, 3 total games since his rookie year. So he's actually been able to stay on the field very well over the past few years. We kind of get sting for that, but it's not really rooted in reality. The problem is, who knows who the quarterback's going to be? It's going to be Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills, even Jeff Driscoll, who is wildly entertaining, even though he's an awful quarterback, but that's a story for another day. So Brandon Cooks, he is the de facto number 1 here, but everything behind him is so crowded. Name your favorite 15th round fantasy wide receiver from 2016. He's probably on the Texans right now. Dante Moncrief, Chris Conley, Alex Harrison, Kiki Cudi, Randall Cobb, Andre Roberts, Tywan Taylor. I like Nico Collins, and he could easily rise up to the top of this, but to expect more than one fantasy relevant receiver to come out of this group, I don't know, man. Miss me with that. And this backfield, it just gets more comical by the day, adding Rex Burkhead to it. It was already don't touch this. Why is Mark Ingram there? Why is Philip Lindsay there? Oh, David Johnson is still there. I have, not even thought about drafting a Texans running back. Yes, I was kind of just reshuffling some of my running back ranks yesterday, and I was like, David Johnson, at what point would you even feel comfortable taking this guy? I'm not sure if there's a round. Even if David Johnson's sitting there in round 15, I'd be like, you have to think it over. So just complete free falls, man. Just stay away from this offense.
I think it's a great summary. There's no reason to touch any Texans. I guess the one thing you could imagine happening is their defense looks pretty horrible on the same end. So at a certain point, you'd think they have to put up points to keep pace with whoever's destroying them on the other end. But I could just see them just being a complete just steamrolled every single week. They put up 10 points themselves. They gave up 40, and it's just an awful, awful season. You got to, respect the commitment to the rebuild, I guess. But ultimately, I'm going nowhere. Even Brandon Cooks, I love how you compare him to the reverse of Allen Robinson. He's just got the most beautiful quarterbacks, and he's performed well because of it. But the one bad season he had was a bad Jared Goff. Can he overcome bad volume? I don't know. I don't think so. And I'm with you. I don't see any reason to touch this in the Deshaun Watson-less era by any means.
Yeah, Brady, Brees, and Watson. Who's running hotter than Brandon Cooks with his
seriously
QBs? Unreal.
Does not get any better than that. Oh, man. And another backfield that is not that attractive, but that's also baked into their prices. So maybe, just maybe, something could emerge here. Should zero RB faithful buy into the Zack Moss and Devin Singletary backfield of the Bills? What are your thoughts?
Not so much Singletary. I think we've kind of seen that run its course. I mean, even last year when Moss was missing time, like we saw TJ Yeldon actually getting a lot more run as kind of the weeks went on with that. So Singletary, he's fine, but we've seen the Bills now tell us that they don't really trust him to be their full-time back. Zack Moss, I think the jury is still out on that. And the place where he's going in fantasy drafts, just shortly after, like Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter, Damon Harris, James Robinson. Like, I'm not saying I necessarily take him over all those guys, but it's a good spot for him. Like, I think it's reasonable. And, if you're a zero RB faithful out there, like, you should be looking at this guy. So, I don't think he's incredible, but hey, the Bills offense is pretty incredible. And I don't think Josh Allen is going to score 8 rushing touchdowns every single season of his career. So that's the hope, because, Josh Allen does kind of fall in that Lamar Jackson pool of great quarterbacks, but they don't really enable fantasy friendly running backs because Josh Allen doesn't have time for checking the ball down. He's gunning that thing downfield, even if it's more accurate these days than it was in the past. And he's taken off for the end zone the second they get inside the 10-yard line. He's literally like a top 10 player in rushing touchdowns since he entered the league. It's madness. But if that slows down, if Josh Allen, since he's such a better passer now and he's about to have, probably 9 digits of millions of reasons to, take care of his body a little bit better, if he can just chill a little bit on that, Zack Moss is the guy we would expect to be taking those touchdowns.
Yeah, I wonder if he will. That's, as you said, every single year he's been so good near the stripes. So I don't know that I expect it to slow down. But at the end of the day, an offense that's put up nearly 30 points last year, they were number 3 in points per game, and they didn't add any backfield competition, and none of us are talking about it. Like, I'm not talking about it. I haven't even looked at it.
It was only Breida,
and Mike Davis. We're all about these guys that emerge from the draft without competition. Well, there's all these rumblings about ETN or whoever going to Buffalo, and it didn't happen, and still we all are ignoring it. So I do think there's some untapped upside, especially all those running backs that you cited, like James Robinson, as good as he was last year. Come on, we can't go back there this season. So if I'm looking for running backs in that range, if that's going to remain his price, give me a guy that does have 3-down skills and an offense that put up nearly 30 points per game. That's probably going to do the same thing in 2021. Yeah, he's going to get vultured by the ultimate vulture in Josh Allen, but still, I see some value. I do see some zero RB faithful value there. I'm with you. I am absolutely with you. Oh, yeah. What about DeVonta Smith? He is quite the polarizing guy on Twitter in terms of his size and how he could translate. But, man, he couldn't walk into a better situation with the Eagles, a more wide-open depth chart. What are your thoughts? Could he be the favorite to lead all rookies in targets? Should he be? And how will he perform if he is?
Yeah, over the past few days, I found myself, slowly but surely hopping to the front seat of that DeVonta Smith bandwagon, man. I didn't realize I was higher on this guy than a lot of people, but, a nice practice I try to do, every couple of months or so is just compare my ranks to whatever ADP source we have to see what guys I'm higher or lower on. Should I be adjusting that? And DeVonta, I'm not. He's my wide receiver 25, but he's going like wide receiver 37 right now, man. And we had, the one take out of the Eagles kind of training camp that, okay, Rager's going to be in the slot more. Like, that's great news for DeVonta. That tells you that DeVonta is being set up to be their undisputed number 1 pass game option. And I think that he should be, man, because he is that freaking good. I mean, you just look at his game log from last year. No gimme games in the SEC. His worst game was basically 7 catches, 73 yards against Tennessee. He had one against Arkansas where he only had 22 yards, but he scored a punt return touchdown. Like, the amount of just 140 plus to 200-yard games and multiple touchdowns, like, maybe we took it for granted because it was like getting that insane, but my goodness, man. I mean, Notre Dame, Ohio State, SEC, didn't matter who the hell it was. He was just going over all of them. Never once in that season where you're like, wow, DeVonta was just a little bit bigger. Maybe he could have made that play. It just didn't matter. And it's really been that case throughout his entire collegiate career. So, when people bring up size, they're bringing up, okay, we've only seen this many players in the last 30 years of football. What does a 170-pound receiver playing in 1990 have anything to do with 2021. It's a completely different game now than it was 10 years ago, just with the way that the officials and injuries are now, or the officials and rule set just trying to protect the offensive players. So to me, DeVonta, I think I tweeted this out yesterday, like he could have 12 targets in week 1 and we wouldn't even bat an eye about it. Like he's going to lead the Eagles in targets. And you look at Chase, you look at Waddle, who I wouldn't even disagree with someone if they said both Chase and Waddle are better football players than DeVonta Smith. But Waddle's got, Parker, he's got Fuller, and he's probably going to be in, better defense. I don't know if they're going to be in the same sort of shootouts as the Eagles. And then Chase, like, okay, I see him getting triple-digit targets, but Higgins and Boyd aren't going anywhere either. So DeVonta is the only one in this group that I think could really hit some sort of gaudy target total, like 150 or something like that.
Love it. And Albert Breer in his Monday morning quarterback column asked all SEC guys, this is the quote, who was the best player they played against over the last couple months. All of them, every single one said DeVonta. Even the Alabama guys, they all said he's the best football player I've ever been around. Every single one they asked. Like, there's just a track record. Nick Saban, said we're not going to make him be more than 165. It's what he plays. He's going to dominate. Like, all these guys continue to bring him up. He's known as one of those, gym rats, those cerebral guys. So good on the outside, inside. They've already said we plan to move him all over the place. Yeah. It's an alpha. He is an alpha. I don't care about the size. He is going to get all the volume. Plus, he already has that connection with Jalen Hurts. Like, why do you think they did that? Of course they want the guys that have the synergy already. I think he's going to walk in day one and be a stud. I'm not buying into this BMI, any of that shit. I get it. It's history with it. And then there's guys that win the Heisman at wide receiver and are just dominant at that level. So give me all the DeVonta. I think I have him right around 24, 25. So we're in lockstep there in terms of over the ECR. I'm definitely with you there.
And look, Jalen Waddle weighs 15 more pounds. What? We're just drawing kind of a weird line here. And it might not even be that much depending on the day. And DeVonta's got, he's freaking taller. So, at what point? For me, I wanted to draw the line at 150 because that's what Tutu Atwell came in under. And I was like, okay, that's the line. 150 pounds, come on. But to me, 166 versus 170, it just seems awfully arbitrary. We see it, man, when you look up a stat and you're using just, your 25 carries and you're like, oh man, the guy I wanted to be number 1's at number 3. And if I can just, bump this up a little bit more, we'll be good. So numbers don't lie, but the people giving you the numbers can smudge them from time to time. And I think we've seen that a lot with some of the DeVonta haters. I'm happy that neither of us fall into that group.
100%. And then another guy I'm absolutely in love with this year, and I think most people can respect him, but I have him right at quarterback 3. He's right around quarterback 5 or 6 right now, is Dak Prescott. What can we expect for this guy that led the NFL in points per game, fantasy points per game last year before going down? Do you think we get that right again in 2021, comes right back? Or what are your expectations for Dak?
My favorite Dak stat from last year is that he scored more touchdowns than Daniel Jones, despite playing in freaking fewer than 5 games. Unreal. At first, I thought they were tied. I took the passing and rushing touchdowns, but no, I forgot. Dak actually caught a receiving score to get past Daniel Jones. Unbelievable. But, he's always been a great fantasy quarterback. 2016, he was the overall QB6. He was QB9. He was QB10. 2019, when he finally has, a good amount of receivers around him, he was the overall QB2. And last season, holy shit, man. Second most fantasy points per game by a quarterback ever behind only 2019 Lamar Jackson. So if Dak is healthy, absolutely overall QB1 an outcome is in his potential favor. I would worry that we don't see him running quite as much. Similar concern with Josh Allen, even though Josh didn't have, that sort of brutal injury. But we were already kind of seeing Dak, take his, foot off the gas a little bit as a rusher anyway. But I don't think you can really take that out of him. I've never seen a quarterback like Dak where, if there's a first down or a goal line that he feels like he needs to get, he'll put his head down with just about anybody. So I don't know if you can even coach that kind of will out of him. But at a minimum, I don't think we're going to see the same sort of reliance on zone read that the Cowboys have had over the past few years. But they're just loaded, man. And what was most impressive about last year was it was the first time we really saw him overcome a not great offensive situation. Look at what happened when Andy Dalton was under center until, the last month of the season. It was brutal because Tyron Smith, La'el Collins were both out for the entire season. Tyron played 2 games. Zach Martin missed. Okay, Zach Martin was there with Dak. He ended up missing some more games down the stretch. But for the first time, the O-line was a train wreck in Dallas. It's always had been that, fortified unit, all the first round picks and all that. Last year, it really wasn't. And in 2017, 2019, we saw him slip up when Tyron was out. In 2018, things were brutal when they traded for Amari Cooper. But again, over these past 2 seasons, we've just seen Dak not only play great in a mostly great situation, but actually elevate his teammates even when stuff has gone south. So, all the Dak haters out there, I just think they hate the Cowboys and they don't want to admit it. Now, hey, the Cowboys, if they score 1 billion points this year, can they hold their opponents under 1,000,000,001? I'm not sure about that. So we'll see how they do in real life. But man, I don't think you can name, you only need one hand to name the amount of offenses that I think will be better than the Dallas Cowboys in 2021.
It is crazy, too. This was their first year in a new offense in the Mike McCarthy system, and it just was bananas. I do wonder if the defense, all their draft picks going to defense, you have to think they get somewhat better, but still, it's a lot of how much better can you get? And this guy, first game, week 1 against the Rams, toughest pass D in the league, still put up 20. After that, 46-30.
And that was with the BS Jalen Ramsey freaking flopping on that Gallup throw.
Exactly. After that, 46, 34, 44 fantasy point game logs. And that's video games. And then he got hurt. He had 15 in the first half. So he was right on pace for another monster game. It's just crazy, averaging over 32 points per game. I think he absolutely gets right back into that range there. And the fact that he can go, he's the reason why I think Pat Mahomes is overpriced, because I think you get just as good of per game numbers for 3-4 rounds later. When I have to pass up on a Michael Thomas to take a Patrick Mahomes versus passing up on, say, an older Adam Thielen, for a Dak, and I get a similar per game, I love Dak. I'm all about it. I think he's one of the best values in fantasy right now. And I always wait on quarterback, but I think he's one of the best.
I think it's always a good idea to wait on the top 1 or 2 overly priced quarterbacks. He shouldn't have been taking Lamar Jackson in 2020 when he's going, round 2 or 3. But yeah, I don't mind when someone like Dak is actually falling to, a pretty reasonable range, particularly in these 2 QB super flex leagues. And if you're in an underdog best ball draft, you should be trying to come away with at least 1 quarterback before round 9 or 10, I'd say.
Yeah, one of these monsters. You saw it last year. You needed that 30 points a week from Kyler, from Dak, whoever it was. And I don't see that slowing down. I know a lot of people, the COVID, defenses weren't ready. I don't buy that. I think just players are just getting that much better. The rules are favoring offenses, and we're just going to keep getting points bonanzas from these teams that have that weaponry and these terrible defenses. I mean, that was the DFS cheat code last year was whoever you either play Dak or you play whoever's facing the Cowboys and Falcons, one of those 2 teams. And it was always just a gold mine.
Seahawks games too in that first half of the year were getting wild, man. Of course, we had the Cowboys Seahawks game. That was the best one of the group.
That was epic. Oh yeah. Now moving to the other end of the draft board is the low ADP receivers, the guys that nobody really is drafting right now, but could have triple-digit 100-target upside. And this one was framed around in your 100 questions, the Detroit Lions. So I imagine we'll be talking about at least one of those guys. And that makes sense because that target totem pole, other than TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift, is a complete mystery. So which receivers do you think are going low that have 100-plus target upside in 2021?
Yeah, I still got to break this one down specifically, but I pulled up just, some underdog ADPs and wide receivers that are at wide receiver 50 or lower. Not outside the top 50 because that would not allow me to talk about Corey Davis, who is sitting right there and actually in a pretty great spot, man. Shout out to my guy, Andrew Erickson, who's always on the Wednesday edition of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. But he brought it up on our episode we recorded yesterday where, Corey Davis, he just had his best season ever, which is great. And he just went to an offense that paid him a lot of money to come there with a new rookie quarterback. And Corey Davis should be projected to lead this team in targets. And he's not number 5 overall pick good, but he was a legit top 10 receiver in efficiency metrics last year. Now, will that change when he's not, when he's not the number 2 behind AJ Brown? Defenses have to focus more attention on him. Sure. But we could also see enough targets to make up for that. And again, when he's going wide receiver 50, it's a risk that you're willing to take around there. So Corey Davis qualifies. Devontae Parker is right next to him. I think he'll probably finish 3rd on targets with Miami, but let's be honest, we don't really know what's going to happen there. I mean, the receivers Tua was throwing to at the end of last year. I mean, Parker, credit to him for gutting out through some injuries he was working with, but brand new offense. So Devontae is someone that we could see finish with triple-digit targets. Cole Beasley has gotten there in each of the past 2 years. He had 5 games to over 100 yards last year, man. And, they switched out John Brown for Emmanuel Sanders. So Beasley could just once again be this really solid kind of high floor wide receiver 3 that has a little bit more boom than we like to give, white slot receivers credit for. Henry Ruggs, I think, is a great bounce back option. Like, the issue was Nelson Aguilar. Is it incredibly annoying that Nelson Aguilar was the issue? Absolutely. Yeah. But he's gone. John Brown's back. We both love Smokey Brown. That's fine. But, his health is always a concern, particularly coming off of last year. And Ruggs didn't have a game with more than 5 targets last year. And I do buy into the idea that you need to kind of earn your targets, and they're a good indicator of a more talented player. But again, it wasn't like he was just, busting with a bunch of opportunities. He looked pretty good when they decided to throw him the ball. I'm not giving up on him just yet with this low ADP. Speaking of Nelson Aguilar, I think with the Patriots, he is looking like their wide receiver 1. He's not getting the respect. Elijah Moore with the Jets. If they ever cut Jamison Crowder, I don't know what they're waiting for, but they drafted Moore early round 2. And if he comes out there, similar to Corey Davis, he could easily take over this offense. Brashad Perryman or Amon-Ra St. Brown were the guys I was thinking of with Detroit. We'll see if I zero more in on that. Amon-Ra, it's I understand people aren't huge on the guy. They weren't on the prospect, and he's only a 4th round pick. But that said, man, it is that wide open of an offense. I mean, all these available target articles, it's almost like 100 targets between the Lions and the next highest team. Someone is going to eat in that offense. And say what you will about Jared Goff, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp over the years were just fine. And that defense in Detroit is going to be well worse than whatever he was working with out there in LA. And final point, you kind of scoffed at him earlier, and I don't think he's all that great either, but Traquan Smith, man, shaping up as the wide receiver 2 in New Orleans. If it's Jameis under center, I think Traquan could be okay. He actually had a game last year, I think it was right after Michael Thomas got hurt, where, I don't know, man, he kind of impressed me a little bit more than usual with kind of some of his yak stuff. And then he got hurt after and then he disappeared. That's the thing. He'll look good for a game or 2, and then he just kind of disappears over the years. So Traquan, when they've thrown him the ball, good things usually happen. And now that Brees we know Brees is gone. Now that we're probably not going to see the offense flow quite so heavily through the running back in the passing game, could be Traquan's time to shine.
I do love Traquan at that price tag for sure. I know I chuckled at him when comparing who does Mike Thomas have competition for. I think he's maybe my favorite name you brought up on that list. I do love Cole Beasley as well, who had 4 20+ fantasy point days last year. You think of him as just the low upside, just churning the change and all that, and he does. But he also has some big blow-up games for him. So I love that one. It happens every year, whether it was Terry McLaurin a couple seasons ago, even Justin Jefferson as a rookie walking into I guess Adam Thielen was there, but still pretty wide open target situation. There's always these murky situations, and nobody really takes them till round 10 or below. I think the Jets is a great qualifier. Somebody is going to be a top probably 30 receiver, top 25 even receiver from the Jets, whether that's Crowder, Moore, or Corey Davis. I don't know. I can't pretend to know which one Zach Wilson's going to mesh with. I think it's going to be Moore. Personally, that's my guess. Somebody is going to be that, though. So yeah, it's got to be one of those. I just love loading up because especially when you look at the hit rate of running backs after round, I think 4 or 5 is just disgusting. Never mind round 10. It's literally 0%. You're going to get a useful running back unless there's an injury. So I love just stacking up receiver after receiver, particularly if you're playing best ball. Of course, everyone knows you just got to stack up in those ranges and hope for the big ones. I love the line situation with Perriman. I think he could be the guy. I like targeting the Jets guys and figuring out what happens there. And I love Traquan Smith. I think he could really emerge with a gunslinging quarterback like Jameis Winston. It's weird to say someone's better off with Winston instead of Brees, a Hall of Famer, but I really think a guy like Traquan, his skill set fits so much better with Winston.
That's fantasy football for you, man. It's the game we play. It doesn't always have to make sense.
Exactly. It never does. It literally will never make sense.
Well said.
Ever. And one thing that never makes sense to me, or at least right now, is that Bucs backfield. Just absolutely atrocious and disgusting. And the reason I put it on here as a burning question, though, is because there were plenty of games where it was Ronald Jones, whether it was Fournette. There was value. There was plenty of top 24 games, particularly Fournette down the stretch there, went completely berserk. But then they mix in Gio Bernard. They bring back Fournette. I have no idea. Keyshawn Vaughn's now talked up as the breakout guy by Bruce Arians. I have no idea. There's 4 guys getting hyped up. Who's it going to be? Is anybody going to be worth it? What are your thoughts on this backfield?
Not really. I'd rather take Zach Moss over these guys at the same spot. I mean, it's 2 top 5 offenses, but at least Moss in his theoretical range of a best case outcome, like he could take over the Bills backfield. Bruce Arians, who is like the most notorious, like we're going to give our running back 20 plus touches, like type of press conference guy that you will ever see. He said this about like Andre Ellington. He said David Johnson was going to get 30 touches one year. Like it's ridiculous the amount of times he's gone here. They asked him about the backfield a couple weeks ago, and he was like, fantasy. He literally brought up fantasy. He's like, fantasy managers are not going to want to hear this, but it's going to be split up between Fournette and Rojo. And we kind of like what we have with Vaughn and Gio on the pass downs. That's the big issue, man. Like you will not find 2 worse pass catching backs than Rojo and Fournette last year in the NFL. Like Rojo was legit PFF's single worst graded running back in receiving grade. There was a play against the Bears where he actually caught a touchdown, but the ref ruled it an incompletion. And Rojo was just like, okay, like just kind of agreed with the ref, and they didn't even review it because, usually the receiver is just freaking out. Rojo is just so used to that, but whatever. He's he's awesome. Like he's underrated when they just hand him the ball. I mean, he was explosive as hell, 98 freaking yard rush. Like he has that type of shit in his wheelhouse, and the Fournette takeover was nice down the stretch, but man, Jones was playing through the pain bad, man. I remember him, just limping heavily throughout that entire Saints game that they managed to win. So to me, it's like Rojo and Fournette probably are going to struggle to get 200 touches. And there's no way, like we're looking at their targets from last year. They had 89 combined. Like what's the over on that this year? Like 50? 40? Like it's I don't know, man. We got Giovanni Bernard's quads looking pretty big out there. Like clearly they want to kind of make this into almost like the New England offense that Brady was working with before, because now we once again have like 4 running backs. So hey, our old adage in the New England backfield was draft the cheapest one. So Gio or Keyshawn, I guess they could be values because they're pretty much free. I'm largely staying away from Rojo and Fournette at their cost.
I'm 100% in agreement there. I've been saying all off season that the most valuable running back out of this backfield will be Giovanni Bernard. I want nothing to do. I think Fournette's my most greatest discrepancy in his big board rank versus where I have him. Minus 60 spots. I want nothing to do with him despite that monstrous playoff stretch. Give me the guy that, James White role, 86, 72, 123, 95 targets in his last 4 seasons with Brady. I think he just goes right into that role. He's just, no disrespect to Jimmy White as a Pats fan, but I don't see anything that he does that Gio Bernard can't do. Maybe a little bit later at a stage of his career, but Bernard's a great pass catcher, a great route runner. I think Brady's going to love this guy moving the chains on third down. And I'm not saying I want Gio Bernard, like I'm dying and gushing to go get him. I wouldn't be shocked if this guy catches 50, 60 balls this year, though. Is top 10 in the league in running back receptions. I could totally see that. Get away from those early down backs. Give me the third down guy. That's all I care about here.
He's still 29, man. Like he's 29. He's okay. It wasn't his best year last year, but ask any single person about Cincinnati, and the first thing they'll do is tell you how bad the offensive line is. So I wouldn't exactly pin that against Gio. And no, man, great points.
I like him a lot. I do. And that's the only one I would even consider touching in this backfield. So the last of your 10 questions from your burning questions 100, and I love this one. And this is especially because I am super high on Travis Kelce in terms of just overall rank. I think he belongs in the top 5 after your big 3 or 4 running backs, just because of the edge he gives you. But you think Darren Waller could challenge him for that type of edge or potentially even take over as the tight end 1? What are your thoughts?
So no, but we all need to get used to Waller being the tight end 2 over Kittle, which seems to be becoming commonplace. And I've even see some people, on Twitter, and I won't name names, but they're I think they might be naming me under their breath, like, hey, everyone, Waller tight end 2 over Kittle. Real sharp players having in drafts have known about this for weeks. I don't know, man. Chill the hell out, people. I don't need to see your subtweet. And look, when you break it down, okay, Kittle, I think, is better than Waller in every single facet of the game. I think Kittle's the best tight end alive. But when you look at what Trey Lance could bring to this offense, I think we got, at least I eventually fell for the Mac Jones shtick. After Daniel Jeremiah and Schefter were putting credence into it, I was like, okay, I guess Mac Jones is going to be the quarterback. Going from him to Trey Lance, PFF draft guy, man, we called Trey Lance Taysom Hill with legit arm talent. It's going to take him a little bit to become this consistent pocket passer, like a Josh Allen type guy. I think we could see in these early years a similar situation to what we were talking about earlier with Taysom Hill, where Trey Lance freaking eats, man. He should be your QB1, I think, in this class, even if he shouldn't be projected for the most points. Trevor Lawrence is starting from week 1. It's going to be tough for Lance to catch that. Like, if every single rookie quarterback is starting in week 10, Trey Lance is going to be the one we have rated the highest. The question is, like, we've already seen Jimmy G. Like, how many passes did he throw in the divisional NFC championships? Like, 27 total or something. Now you have a rushing quarterback so we're expecting the offense to lean more run heavy, and now he's going to be taking a freaking part of that pie out himself. So Kittle, he was number 2 in yards per out run last year, behind only Devontae Adams. Like, unbelievable. If we could give him 150 targets, he would go the hell off. He's not going to get that. Waller, I think, has probably the better passing quarterback right now, particularly when we're talking about chemistry, because, Lance and Kittle are going to have to get this going sooner rather than later. We can for sure project them for more volume after what we just witnessed last year. And I don't know, man, like, I think the Raiders offense will score more points than the 49ers next year, and people are going to freaking cry. I'm happy you don't do if they put that quote on like our PFF account, people would massacre me on Twitter. But if you look at Kyle Shanahan, man, real quick, last year, the Raiders and the Titans last year were the 2 teams with the largest difference in their points per game and their points per game allowed. The Raiders were 10th in points per game. They just allowed points at the 30th rate. But Kyle Shanahan is, in my opinion, one of the best play callers in the league. But we kind of overstate how effective that has been, at least, in recent years. He's really only had one good year with every single team that he's been a play caller for. In San Francisco, he's ranked 20th, 21st, 2nd, and 21st in points per game. In Atlanta, he was 21st and 1st. In Cleveland, he was 27th. In Washington, he was 25th, 26th, 4th, and 23rd. In Houston, he was 17th and 10th. I mean, that's going back to 2008. And we have going back to 2010, all but 3 seasons, Kyle Shanahan led a scoring offense outside of the top 20. It's what happened, man. And it's weird. I saw that stat, and, I didn't exactly. Again, we can, fudge numbers sometimes here, but that's the case, man. And Jimmy G, like, we saw him be a part of some of these offenses. He can't really stay healthy. And, like, as much as Trey Lance might be great, he played 1 game last year. He's still a rookie quarterback. It's a similar thing with Justin Fields in Chicago. Like, they might be awesome quarterbacks in the future. We can't assume they're going to lead this great offense early on. So more and more as the offseason goes on, I've been sliding all my 49ers down a little bit, with the exception of Raheem Mostert, who I think everyone's freaking out a little bit too much about.
Like it a lot. I totally agree that there's just a smaller pie, way more mouths to feed in San Francisco. I've been long on the Waller train as well, over Kittle. And I didn't know that stat. And the one I really caught my ear there was 30th in the rate of points allowed there for the Raiders. Well, no wonder that we're seeing Darren Waller see 146 targets last year, because they have to chuck, and they have no one else to chuck it to. Like, sure, Ruggs, maybe he is that guy that takes a step up. John Brown, we've seen do some damage, but to me, they're just field stretchers to let the big guy do his work underneath. There's no reason this guy doesn't see another 140, maybe even more targets. To me, he just continues to ascend. And I'm in 100% agreement. Kittle, best tight end in the game, like blocker, everything. But that doesn't mean he's the best fantasy tight end by any means. And especially when you have to take that guy, right? When you're taking like a Mixon, when you're taking maybe even an Eckler or an A.J. Brown. No way.
Can't do it.
No way. Give me Darren Waller, especially because he's going a few picks later in round 3, like all day. But even if it was just in a vacuum, I had to get a tight end in round 2. I'm going Darren Waller. I'm with you there. The last few questions. So that wraps up the 10 questions I picked from Ian's list. Remember to check that out over at pff.com/fantasy. 100 questions in 100 days. They're all fantastic. They're all great. You can also get his tiers and all that great stuff churning out over there at Pro Football Focus. I did have a few more burning questions that are just going to dominate the rest of the offseason that could really change the landscape. We typically think right by now that the draft, everything's over and the fantasy values are set, but there's 3 more bombs in addition to the Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill news. That's 1 bomb that's going to be dropped regardless of what happens in camp. But there's 3 more bombs waiting to be dropped, and these are the ones in my eyes. Julio Jones, of course. What is your prediction where he goes, and what's kind of your best and worst case scenario for him in fantasy?
I think he's playing for the Falcons, man. I think they figure out this salary cap without trading one of the freaking 10 best wide receivers alive, and it might very well be higher than that. I mean, it's weird with Julio, man. He's the only like high usage receiver really over the past 5, 6, 7 years for PFF that we've had average at least 3 yards per route run in a season. He's not doing that anymore, but he's still like a top 5 receiver in yards per route run. Like he's just that good. Even Julio, even the B+ version of Julio is still, among the league's very best wide receivers. So I just don't, it's never made sense to me why they need to get rid of him. Like if they wanted to rebuild, they could have drafted a quarterback. They could have found a way to maybe trade Matt Ryan. Like what does trading Julio Jones do, particularly if it's taken this long? It's not like Julio Jones went on undisputed and just demanded a trade and the Falcons have had, a week to do this. They said that they've been trying to find a trade partner for months. And Julio Jones announcing to everyone this is going on didn't exactly help. I don't think that really helped them accomplish that task. And he can talk about not wanting to go to the Cowboys and all that. Like, bro, you don't have a no trade clause. And you look at the last, alpha wide receivers that have been, traded. We had Antonio Brown, the Bills, for about 6 hours. We had Stephon Diggs, the Bills. We had Odell Beckham to the Browns. Hopkins got to go to the Cardinals. Bill O'Brien doing his thing. But like, okay, Cleveland and Buffalo, I know they look pretty appealing right now, but you kind of you go backwards to when they got traded, and I don't think either of those receivers were probably too happy about that destination. So yes, do the Falcons owe it to Julio to probably try to trade him somewhere he wants to go? You'd think so, but more and more, man, I just like it doesn't make sense for them to even trade him. So I think he stays in Atlanta. If he does go, I think best case for his just overall value, like the Bills, just him and Diggs would tear things up. This is already an offense that has shown like they don't care about running the ball. So we could see him, basically just him and Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen would just be like a better version of what they already had in Atlanta between him, Ryan, and Calvin Ridley. The worst, like, probably the Broncos or something, man, like just erratic QB play with like an already pretty loaded wide receiver room that might not afford him as many targets as he needs. In fantasy land, it's kind of similar, but best, like it's hard to deny Green Bay would be pretty awesome. Like just see ya MVS. Aaron Rodgers is happy now. He's going to find a way to get Julio, 120 plus targets, and it's probably going to be towards the highest efficiency of his career. And then worse, like maybe New England, man, but it's so weird to say Julio Jones would be, worse or bad anywhere, because he wouldn't be. He would make all 32 teams better. And that's what kind of annoyed me throughout some of this process. Like we got rap sheets saying, Falcons want to get rid of Julio Jones' terrible contract. No, a terrible contract is for a not good football player. Like just because they're paying Julio Jones a lot of money doesn't make it a terrible contract. When you're that good, when you're Julio Jones level good, you should be getting paid that sort of money. So don't love, some of the statements that would come out of this, but like somewhere like New England probably wouldn't be very great for his fantasy stock just because, we got the tight ends there now. It seems like Cam has a shot to, continue to start. I don't know. I think Mac Jones is under there sooner rather than later. But even New England, I don't think anywhere in the league would we be dropping Julio more than outside the top 16 or 18 wide receivers, which is a testament to how damn good the guy is.
It's true. The guy's an absolute stud, legend. He's been doing it forever and should have at least a couple left in him. I do agree with you. New England was my worst case, which is kind of surprising that it's like, that's where he wants to go. He wants to play with Cam Newton is one of the rumblings. I don't know that I buy that. I certainly don't want him to go to the Titans, even though they're like the favorite right now to go there. Only because selfishly just have a lot of A.J. Brown in early drafts. And I just want to see this guy finally get his
You and me both. You and me both.
Targets. Yeah, I know you're leading that train too, no doubt. So selfishly, fantasy-wise, I don't want to see him go there either. But yeah, he's going to do fine wherever he lands. I do think New England would be one of the worst case. But even then, if Mac Jones takes over, and all the reports are he's been slinging it early in camp so far. Or not camp, but whatever, the OTAs. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you. There's really not a bad case when you got a talent like Julio Jones. That idea with the Packers, though, Aaron Rodgers with Adams and Julio, holy shit, that would be.
Bro, we've been asking for it for so long. And like Packers fans take so much offense to when people like say that Aaron Rodgers hasn't gotten enough help. Like, look at all the top offenses we've had and stuff. Like, come on, though. They literally haven't drafted another first-round skill position player other than Jordan Love since Rodgers. Like, I know Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, and all these guys that weren't first-round picks were still awesome. But that doesn't mean you couldn't have added, like, more awesome players. We understand that Aaron Rodgers has made this team incredible ever since he's, been their starting quarterback. But, man, oh, man, like, we've seen some of the heights that he can reach with this roster. Like, it's okay to give him more help. Like, as we're seeing with, like, Russell Wilson and stuff, man. Like, you can't have enough great receivers sometimes.
And that's one of the rumors too, actually, is that Seattle's in the talks with them too. Imagine that one, DK, Lockett, and Julio. Maybe a mess for fantasy.
I'm about to say, not great for fantasy, but
not great for fantasy. Real life wise, other than Russell Wilson, who would just go completely bonkers. And you got to imagine they abandoned this whole we have to establish the run.
That's the thing,
right? They probably wouldn't, right? You'd have those three receivers and they'd run it 45 times a game still. Like disgusting.
Chris Carson, 400 touches and just dominating every game.
Exactly. Yeah. Seriously. Speaking of the Packers, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, how do you see this playing out? Is he going to leave? And if he does, what's the impact and where do you see him going? Should he leave?
Once again, I think he stays. I think it's a lot of freaking May smoke that was getting blown up our asses by, national reporters and stuff. And with Rodgers and Julio, the big date was always June 1st. And I will say I kind of put more stock into it at first when I was like, okay, they're not going to do any trades until after June 1st because that was just the way both the cap hits worked. But no, like that, I was just a little not ignorant. I don't know what the right word is, but I don't think that was the case. We see guys come to agreement well before that June 1st deadline. Much like Julio, the Packers have been engaged in, trade talks or at least listening to them for months. This isn't a new thing with Rodgers. And because of that, I just think the longer it goes on, the more likely it becomes he's back in Green Bay. So let's say he does get traded, hey, it would obviously hurt pretty much everybody involved. I think Jordan Love would fall in as, just kind of in that weird QB, like 20 to 25 range of guys that you're usually not drafting anyway. He only averaged 10 rushing yards per game at Utah State, never had 50 rushing yards in a game. And I just don't think that he's going to really translate immediately to, being a fantasy friendly quarterback, even if he's probably better in real life than most people will give him credit for. Aaron Jones, if he falls like too much past being like a borderline RB1, high-end RB2, he might become a value because, man, oh, man, if he takes Jamal Williams targets, he's going to be fine. Yeah. The question is that split between him and Dylan. So, again, it just lowers the ceiling for both because we don't have the same touchdown equity. But if you go back to 2018, Matt LaFleur gave Derrick Henry, I think it was 236 touches, and he gave Dion Lewis 214. So we could see this be far more of a condensed committee than we're expecting. And it could work. If they can put up points, Dylan can almost be the lead early down guy, and Jones will be getting so many catches that he can make up for, kind of lack of usage. He can almost be like an Alvin Kamara type. So I think Jones, it could actually still be okay for him. And DeVonta, man, like we saw when he was with, was it Brett Hundley? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He was still the wide receiver 12 in that stretch. He had a dud here or there, but like still a wide receiver 1. So he would slide down, but he'd still be top 10, whether you want to put him 6, 8, or 9, or hell, even keep him in the top 5. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with it. I mean, the fact that he can just still get as open as he does, even with opponents knowing that he is the only guy out there, like it doesn't change much for him. It's like kind of like he just turns into Michael Thomas where, okay, we got to worry about a quarterback change, but we still have a great receiver, a better receiver than Michael Thomas, like to be honest, and in an offense where they are just the undisputed number 1 target. So he'd be fine. But after that, man, Tunyon, MVS, Amari, no, I don't want him.
See them all. Yeah, 100% agree.
Later.
The last potentially bombs to drop involves all these fucking disgusting running back decaying corpses that are just going to stink up from backfields, and we don't know who yet, and maybe none of them lands. Fingers crossed these guys just stay out of the league. Us fantasy owners are certainly done with them. I don't think any of us are going to draft any of these guys, no matter where they land. The question is, though, who do they impact? Where do they go? What are your predictions on what backfields might add one of these disgusting, gross corpses at running back?
Man, Todd Gurley's 26.
I know. I should.
No, you're not wrong.
3 years ago was one of the best in the game. Like I know. I feel bad calling, and even though they're bad, like they're not old, they're just gross at this point. Like he's not going to be a stud again. No way. We saw it last year.
I know. It's just sad, man. I like when he did like an April Fool's thing that someone signed him. I just like wanted to cry. I was like, oh, Todd.
Poor Gurley. It is so sad. I mean, what was it? 3 years ago, he was back-to-back running back 1 for the first time since like Priest Holmes did it. Like,
It's unreal. Like it's just like he hit a wall, like just halfway, like almost not even halfway, like 80% through the 2018 season. Just hasn't been the same. Those knees are so old.
Yeah.
The guy has scored like the least impressive 21 or 23 touchdowns over the past 2 years you could ever imagine. So hey, it sounds like the Lions are interested in him, but I mean, it probably would have happened already if he was going to be signed. But hey, if they're interested in Gurley, maybe they could be interested in Le'Veon, Frank Gore, AP reunion or something like that. Yeah. I think we'll probably see these guys, get signed close to August after an injury happens or so. Miami, they added Malcolm Brown, but they never made that real addition that I think we expected. I could see them doing it. Jets remain painfully thin. If Tevin Coleman isn't looking as good as their OC remembers him from San Fran, that could be an issue. Baltimore, again, they really like Justice Hill, and they should. Justice Hill is a very solid number 3 running back, but I wouldn't be shocked if they try to add someone else. And then finally, Kansas City is a contender again. I would just note that last year, the whole Le'Veon Bell and Kansas City situation, it really didn't hurt Clyde quite as much as people thought. He still started every game. Honestly, Le'Veon almost just started splitting things with Darrell Williams more than Clyde, and it just became more of a 3-backfield, and Mahomes went nuts for a few weeks. So, I've referenced some small sample splits from last season as well, throughout this podcast. So it matters what happened with that, but Clyde, even if they do add one of these players, he's still someone that is the RB1 on probably the best offense in football, and I don't think, the presence of any of these guys are going to impact that too much. So yeah, Kansas City, Baltimore, Jets, Miami, and Lions would be my top 5.
Interesting. So you think Mr. Quads himself, Mike Davis, remains unscathed by the end of this all?
That's a good point.
I hope so.
I really hope so, man. That'd be fantastic. Man, the hate on Mike Davis, I don't know why he gets hate. Like, he should be everyone's favorite player, but I feel like every time I tweet a video or something about him, people are just coming at the guy. And I hear the same excuses, the same hate for Mike Davis, like David Montgomery got. You got a guy breaking tackles at a top 10 rate, and they go, well, he doesn't have, the 0 to 100. He can't accelerate. He can't make the big play. And then, Montgomery does that shit against like the Packers and Texans, and they just say, the run defense sucked. Never mind that we don't bring those things up when Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry did it at the end of last season. But, it is what it is. Mike Davis, I think Adam Levitan coined it like he's 90% CMC. He's good, man. I even thought he was good going back to the Seattle days. So, maybe I'm being a little optimistic, hoping Mike Davis just holds on to the job. But it's a 2-year deal worth $5 million, which is the amount of money they gave Gurley 1 year to pretty much be their undisputed guy until it was just so clear that he wasn't even the best running back in his own backfield. So Mike Davis, man, even if it could happen and it could get ruined rather quickly, I'd take Mike Davis, over Myles Gaskin, over any of the Jets guys, and, over Jamal Williams and some of those other guys too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hoping he remains unscathed. And even if not, I think he's going to remain their horse regardless. I am worried Bell goes to Miami. I know there's rumblings there. And I'm not, even then still, I still think Myles Gaskin might be the guy, but we will see. We will see where these corpses land. Hopefully nowhere. Hopefully with the Jets, because no one cares about that backfield. But we will find out. My man, I know we were already hitting an hour. Are you willing to run through the no-huddle offense with me, though?
Of course.
All righty. Hell yeah. I appreciate the time, all the insight. You can, of course, find Ian Hartitz stuff at Pro Football Focus, PFF.com/fantasy, at iHartitz on Twitter. My man, I appreciate it. We're going to hit that no-huddle offense now. 20 rapid-fire burning questions for fantasy, even though we just did a burning question show. So some of these might be repeats. I don't know how many there are. I don't think too many
it's
are.
All good.
Go through with the name, the players that come to mind, or whatever answer comes to mind. Starting with, in order, the first 3 picks in every 2021 draft should be
Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley.
Travis Kelce should go no later than pick number
12, but that'd be late.
The next Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen will be
Ryan Fitzpatrick. Don't worry about fitting the narrative too close. He's a value.
I am all in on that, by the way. Veteran who gained the most value this offseason.
I still think he sucks, but it's Sam Darnold.
Veteran who lost the most value this offseason.
RIP James RB1 Sun season. Sorry, everybody.
100%. Rookie 101 should be
Superflex, I would go Trey Lance. Kyle Shanahan thinks he's the guy. I think he's the guy. Regular, probably Jamar Chase, but I think between him and Najee, I'd be pretty open either.
The biggest rookie flop's going to be
Zach Wilson. I'm done. I'm done crossing out quarterbacks after we heard Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. We're all going to be busts. You don't need to be a good real-life quarterback to be a good fantasy quarterback. I'll need to see Zach Wilson change my mind, though. I don't think he's going to be great.
Current NFL player that you hate the most?
Aaron Jones, only because he freaking commented on my fantasy RB rankings, like what the hell, when he wasn't in tier 1. Aaron, I ranked you as the RB5. You're like the RB8 in the industry. I am higher on you than most, and you can't give me that shit, man. I'm rooting for you. I want them to give you more touches, Aaron Jones, and when you're freaking talking down on my fantasy article where I'm ranking you higher than other people, it's an issue, but, it's all good.
That's pretty badass, actually. I didn't see that he commented on it. That's dope. Yeah, even if he's hating on you.
Every now and then you see the random article just really getting some likes. You're like, hold on. Did someone comment on this?
Oh, yeah. Love it. The free agent who's going to crush in his new home.
Mike Davis, baby. That's what I was waiting for.
Quadzilla, baby. Love it. Early rounder, 1 or 2 that busts the hardest this year.
Jonathan Taylor. I can't believe I got this far in the podcast without bashing this dude. Now people, he's right up there, man. Every time I talk about this guy, people are coming at me. But look, there is a 0% chance that Marlon Mack starts next season. Like he started last season. It's not going to happen. Like Jonathan Taylor will start. But guess what? Marlon Mack is going to get some level of touches, just like Jordan Wilkins got some level of touches throughout last year. And Nyheim Hines did not go anywhere. Carson Wentz was terrible last year. If he's not any better, I don't care how good their offensive line is. Jonathan Taylor's back's against the wall if he's going to be getting, closer to 225 touches than 300 plus, like we would hope for him to get in a best case scenario.
For what it's worth, I'm -8 on his ECR too. I have him towards the end of the second round, and I'm significantly lower for whatever that's worth.
It's bro, you can rank him as a top 12 RB, and there's always someone there. It's you're way too low on Jonathan Taylor. Come on, maybe we are. We'll see.
Mid rounder that ascends to 2022 early rounds.
Kareem Hunt, maybe, man. Browns can save. I checked out his contract. They can save $6 million on the cap if they release him after this season ahead of 2022. I don't know why they necessarily want to release him. That seems like a good number for a player as good as Kareem Hunt. But Baker contracts coming up. If they just decide they want money elsewhere, if he goes somewhere else and he gets that 3-down roll, I think we'll see him flying up the boards.
Would love that. A late round league winning running back, wide receiver, or tight end. Your choice.
Adam Troutman, New Orleans Saints.
Love it. Love the Troutman. Most important training camp story, battle to monitor.
Jameis Taysom. We talked about that.
Sophomore running back that you want the most and least.
Cam Akers I have as number 1. We want that Todd Gurley role. We want that Todd Gurley role that took over fantasy football in 2017, 2018. That's what Akers had at the end of the season in 2020. At the least, at cost, okay, we could find some like LaMichael Pirine isn't going to get any touches this year, but I think James Robinson just at cost. Even with this ETN, the slot news people, Carlos Hyde's there, and Urban said that he's going to be getting touches. And, I know Carlos Hyde doesn't really matter, but when he's back with his old college coach who says he's going to matter, okay, I think he does matter a little bit.
Yeah. And we already know your answer to this. Will Rodgers leave Green Bay? I think you said no.
Yep.
But should he? Who's the first receiver that you're going to draft?
Ooh, Mr. AJB, the wide receiver 1 season. He's my wide receiver 2 right now, man. I'm with it. We got the report today, they're moving him around, trying to get him free, use him out of the slot. Here's my wish. Let's get AJ Brown more than the 0 rush attempts he had last year, man. He took that one reverse 50 yards against the Saints, and maybe it was because he had the knee issues, and but I don't know, man. You're throwing him the ball 10 times a game. Is that really all that much more safe than giving him a reverse or 2 here and there? So get AJ Brown the ball and good things happen. We all know that.
Love that call. Player, this one's a unanimous so far in the guys we've had on there. The player you'd least like to fight.
Okay, I'm guessing they said Aaron Donald, but here's where they're wrong. Yes, Aaron Donald murders me. Aaron Donald murdered, okay, but 80% of the NFL murders me. So I'm going to say Justin Tucker because it would be so embarrassing if he kicked my ass. I've gone out on Twitter and said, kickers are useless. I hate them. I don't want them in football. And it would just damage me, both personally and publicly if Justin Tucker just beat my fucking ass on a pay-per-view or something like that. So to me, my nightmare would be losing a fight against a kicker. I'm not saying that I would ever lose to a kicker. Don't get me wrong. But, that's just a no-win situation. That's the only NFL player that you could fight where all of a sudden the pressure would be on you to try to win would be a kicker.
I like the call. Like you'll take the physical beat down, but keep your pride.
Yeah, right.
The emotional scars that you'll live with forever if Justin Tucker gave you an ass whooping. I love that one. That's fantastic. Most intriguing coaching hire of 2021.
Like Arthur Smith and the Falcons, hey, what if Arthur's just hitting the pipe a little bit too hard, and he's like, Mike Davis looks more and more like Derrick Henry by the day. We got Matt Ryan bounce back potential. I don't think he's washed. His arm looks fine, but let's face it, he hasn't been the same guy since his MVP season. And just with the weapons that are in place, Falcons defense isn't good, but they have like the Falcons are like a less sexy kind of version of the Cowboys. I know they're not necessarily super discounted across the board, but it's an offense that could easily finish in the top 5 in the league if their O-line could take a little bit of a step forward.
I actually predicted that. I think the Falcons lead the league in touchdowns this year. So
I like
we'll
that.
See if that happens. I won't leave 2021 fantasy drafts without taking
Raheem Mostert. He's my number one exposure right now. I loved him before the draft because he was going like RB 28, 30 range. And now he's going lower. Trey Sermon has a higher ADP than Raheem Mostert right now. Like, come on, people. The dude ran for 4 touchdowns in the NFC Championship game in the year 2020. Draft Raheem Mostert. He's just right now, if you're doing anything resembling 0 RB and you don't have Raheem Mostert, you messed up.
Yeah, and we had a 49ers beat on Grant Cohen from Sports Illustrated, and he said everybody's discounting Mostert way too early.
He's awesome, man.
He is a talented player. We will see what happens there. And last one, 2021, biggest, boldest prediction you got for fantasy football this year.
DeVonta Smith finishes as a legit top 12 wide receiver 1. I'm not ranking them there just yet. So, yeah, I always struggle with these, am I predicting it if I don't really have them ranked? But I could legit see that. Again, like if Devontae has like 100 catches this year, you can name just some wild things, and at least I wouldn't be surprised. So
wouldn't bat an eye at that. So The last 3 we have are just more so about the industry. Who's kind of your role model or someone you've always looked up to in this industry?
Yeah, I'd say Evan Silva. Ever since I started, I've considered him the best in the game. He's still doing it over at Established Run. I know he's not as frequent on Twitter these days as he used to be, so maybe people are, forgetting. But man, he is still definitely the GOAT in my mind. Continues to grind and get better. He's, and what to me, what's impressed me most about Evan is he's helped me over the course of my career, just being very kind and gracious with his time, not just podcast, but also just reaching out and putting in a good word with people. But he's done that with so many people. And, I try to do the same, but it's hard, man. We're busy people. And I can't even imagine how, Evan feels with that. So the fact that he's also helped influence so many younger people in our industry, I really think he deserves all the credit given to him and more.
100%. Love that guy too. Yeah. Underrated fantasy sleeper analyst that all of our listeners should follow.
My guy, who I got to figure out his last name before he comes on my podcast this week, but Kyle Dorvchek. I work on it, Kyle, but at Kyle Tweets here. Found this dude, when he was, I didn't find him. Fantasy Labs found him, and I worked at Fantasy Labs. And I just remember seeing this guy's articles, and I was like, damn, he's thinking for himself a little bit here. You see in this industry, a lot of the same things repeated over and over again. And to me, Kyle always stuck out as someone that, was trying to put his own twist on things. And he's worked really hard. And now he just got hired full time by the artist formerly known as Roto-World, whatever they're calling themselves these days. So he's one of the blurbers over there with Roto Pat and company, and he's doing his thing. So yeah, check him out on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast this Friday.
Nice, man. And that's one way to find you is your PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Where's another reminder of where else our listeners can find you?
PFF.com, as we went through earlier in the pod, 100 questions in 100 days, and I'm turning those questions into mini podcasts as well. So PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, fantasy files out every single day, and also have our Wednesday and Friday episodes as well. On Twitter, at Ian Hartitz, trying to keep it loose. Man, we need like a sarcasm button or something on there, bro, because I had this one, because one of the things that's pissed me off most this entire cycle so far is just injury, predictor Twitter, and how like Joe Mixon's the only running back that we can like assume is going to get hurt. Never mind that McCaffrey and Saquon missed last year. That doesn't matter, but we'll penalize Mixon for that. And Chris Carson as well, even though he's only missed like 4 games in the past, or what was it? No, you know what I'm saying, yeah, but it's so bad. But I sent out a tweet basically saying like Saquon, Dalvin, CMC, they've missed full seasons recently. You can't draft them. I just listed like the first 15 running backs and why you can't draft them. And I legit had people at the end of it being like, you work for PFF and you're saying not to draft a single running back? Like, come on, man. So hopefully you all can see through my occasional either misinterpreted, badly timed, whatever you want to call them tweets, and you find the good stuff there. So, bro, we both grind all year long. Don't show too much respect to these other sports out there, because if we want to try to be the best in football, man, if you're not looking at it every single day, then someone else is.
100%, my man. Well, thank you so much, Ian. It is always, like I said at the top, one of, if not my favorite show every year to catch up with you. I hope to keep in chat all summer, man. Best of luck in 2021 with all your work, everything going on. And until next time, brother, cheers. Thanks so much for joining.
Cheers to you, Wolfie. Thank you. Hope to have you back in the PFF pod soon, too.
Would love it.